So I did my project on creative problem solving in 3D, where I purchased uh, a 3D printer along with a computer to run the software and wanted to see how that would affect the learning in my art classes. So the problem that I was trying to address is student creativity during the problem solving method. Uh, a lot of students, particularly in art class, really struggle with creatively thinking through potential problems, sticking with it, um, and I wanted to create a scenario where students would be faced with a problem. They would have to ideate, come up with solutions, uh, various solutions, and then choose one and use that for a design project with the 3D printers. So my research questions were, does the 3D printer help students become more engaged in the creative process? And do students exhibit creative problem solving skills through innovation of new products or solutions? So my action plan was to do this sometime between November and March. I ended up doing this project the middle of January. It just worked out in my schedule to do that with my Art 2 class. And so we started with um, uh, talking about artists who are also inventors. So we talked about Leonardo da Vinci and how he came up with novel ideas to solve certain problems and issues he saw, and then some that were just completely brand new and such as the idea of like a helicopter or parachutes, things that were way beyond his time. And so we talked about him as a not only an artist but an inventor. And then I posed a problem to them and told them to we were going to focus on our problem was going to be on endangered species. And so I showed them a video from PBS, great lesson plan that's free and available to anyone out there. And it was about using 3D printers to solve an issue pertaining to sea turtles. And so in the video, the creator of the problem solver, if you will, came up with the solution of 3D printing eggs, the same size and shape as the turtle eggs, because the one of the reasons why turtles were going or being endangered in that particular area was because of poachers taking their eggs and selling them at market. And so they came up with the idea to put a tracker inside the egg and do that. So I presented that to my students. Then I had them do some brainstorming activities with peers. I actually ended up making this a group project because I thought that might spark more discussions and ideas and creative sharing, which in a personal way really helps me to do that, to shoot ideas off of people. And so I thought that might be a good way to kind of introduce this kind of problem solving with my students. So once they did that, then I did a very brief introduction to the 3D design platform we use. We use Tinkercad because it was available for all students, so whether they had a computer or not. And it was web-based, where it would save their progress in the cloud. And so we, what I did, I showed them the basics and had them play around with it first, because I felt like students might learn better if they just, as the name of the program is, tinker around with it. And so I kind of showed them basics, like here's how to, place an item, here's how to combine items, and then had them kind of just play around with it. And then they use this program to come up with designs for their particular endangered species. So they chose an endangered species. So I shared with them the endangered species list. They chose one from there. They did research to find out where the animals from, what were the three main factors that were causing their endangerment. And then they also had to choose one of those issues to address. So, just like with the sea turtle, there's multiple things causing the endangerment of the sea turtle, but they chose to do the poaching in that particular video I showed my students. And so I said, there's going to be multiple reasons why endangered species are going endangered, um, and it's usually complex reasons. But focus on one thing that you think you can solve through design. And so that's what I did. And so they did their design. And so for my data analysis and I did observations, so just walking around, which I typically do in my class anyways, engaging with students, just watching, observing, seeing what they're doing, taking some notes over their engagement and how they're doing with the project. And then also student products. So the two questions, essentially, to answer my questions, is was there evidence of more student engagement because of using the 3D printer? Because I thought, this is a really cool new technology. Maybe students will be more engaged with that. And sadly, I witnessed about the same amount of engagement during this project as compared to other projects. So, like with a lot of art projects, some students will be really engaged with certain types, and then others will be really engaged with others. Some kids really like drawing, some really like sculpting. Some are just engaged all the time because they just love creating. And since I have a wide range of abilities in my class, I saw that equally with the 3D printing, but it did engage some students who were less engaged with, say, painting. So there were some positives out of it, but overall, students were still on the same level. It didn't really boost their engagement necessarily. So I have some potential explanations for that. One is just the overall disengagement I've noticed with students this year in technology because they had to depend so much on it the past 2 years with the shutdown in March 2020, and then the whole entire crazy hybrid virtual year and switching and all that. I feel like students just got really burnt out with technology. The other thing too is most adults assume that because students are tech savvy on one of these things on their cell phone, that translates over to computers, and that's not the case. I figured that out last year, and just trying to walk students through various technology issues. And so I think they just got really disengaged with using technology. And so it wasn't novel, it wasn't cool, it wasn't new, it wasn't something different. And so I think that's part of the reason as well. I also think part of it is, like I said, it's due to the fact that they really are not computer savvy, they're phone savvy. And it's a lot of students, when they don't feel confident in their abilities to do something, they're very hesitant. I say that a lot in art class. I have kids who say, I'm not an artist. And so that's a big roadblock that I have to overcome. And I feel like that's the same kind of thing here with the technology. I also think another potential explanation is that students really struggle with open-ended tasks, and especially with unfamiliar materials. So I said just recently, like the technology is unfamiliar. Using a 3D modeling program is unfamiliar, and combining the lack of familiarity with open-ended problems really trips some kids up. And I think a part of that is because students really like a scripted, I want to do this, this, and this, and I can cross it off my list and I can do it and I will get a grade. And when you challenge them to do higher order thinking, a lot of times you hear crickets in your classroom. And in an art classroom, the thing that most students want to do is mimic what they see, which is great for learning skills. But when you try to push them creatively, then there's sometimes a lot of pushback. They struggle. They don't feel confident in their ability to problem solve or to be creative. However, the student products did show some creative problem solving. So I have a couple images here. I have some off the program. I actually printed these off and then totally forgot to take pictures. So you're getting the 3D versions turned into me before they got printed on the printer, and then one actual 3D printing. So did they exhibit creativity in their solutions to the problem? Yes. Now, some with further prompting, some of them wanted to do just really rudimentary ideas. And so I would walk around as they were kind of coming up and brainstorming their ideas, and I would push them a little more to come up with more novel ideas, things that, you know, would be really innovative and not just, someone's done this before, let's just do it again. So some came up with ideas such as this is a leaf bug. So the idea for this one is to serve as a surveillance device. So you would put a camera inside of it, and it would work just like a typical bug. So it would fly and blend in like like a leaf, and could hide and watch um, potential predators, poachers, that sort of thing. This particular device, this might be one of the most creative ones without me urging them on. This student and their partner came up with the idea um, to because one of the issues for their species was flooding because of climate change. Flooding is becoming more prominent in that particular region. And so they thought, well, it would be kind of cool to do something like a dam, but instead of it being solid, you would open and close. You could have a mechanism to open and close according to certain water amounts, so that it would open if it needed to release some water, like during a potentially rainy season, but then close if the water downstream was getting too much and could pose an issue for the particular animal that they were trying to protect, which I thought was a really cool idea. And they have it to where it's blocks. So this could be done in a variety of places. So you just make them and you put them together, kind of like a Lego set. So you could adjust it to whatever the width of the stream or river was. So it could be used in other locales as well. So I thought that one was a really cool idea. Another idea, and this one is one that I had to prompt a little bit. And so this one was for, if I remember correctly, it was for seals, a certain species of seals that's going extinct, or on the verge of going extinct. And the original idea was to put a speaker to that had a motion sensor on it that would release a sound to scare off potential predators or poachers, which was fine. But I said, hey, anyone could put a speaker on a thing, but then it's also going to be really obvious to a human that's there if they're a poacher. And so I said, what are some other ways you could do the same concept of like having that alarm, that sound to like scare off people, but in a new and innovative way. And so they're like, well, there's seagulls there. I was like, okay, well, how can you combine the two? The fact that they're seagulls, which would be, because they first said rocks. I was like, yeah, that's kind of boring. What are some, other animals or things there that you could hide this device in? And so they came up with using a seagull that would be like mechanical, but look like a real seagull, that would have a speaker system built into it. So you can kind of see the little speaker they designed inside the seagull. And that would sound the alarm. So that was once with some urging, we got them to a really cool and novel idea there. So with some guidance, I think students can get there. And I think some students are just gifted and they already have a good self-efficacy towards creativity, while others need to learn how to be creative. So some of my final thoughts. One is do a little bit more step-by-step method of teaching the software to build confidence. I I feel like just tinkering around um, didn't help some students. They need more structure. So I really think differentiation's the way to go here. Students who are good at like learning things on their own, you could totally have them do that. Whereas some students need that. Here's step A, step B, step C. Um, I also think using the traditional media. So I think having students design and do drawings first can help them think through um, the different aspects of what they're designing and to think in three dimensions because know through my experience students really struggle with 3D. It's easier for them to draw than it is for them to think of a 3D model or a sculpture even. So doing some sort of traditional medium, maybe even using Play-Doh or something like that so they can think in three dimensions as well and do a little model before they actually do the 3D modeling. And then I think the other things, I think some students were just not engaged because they are not necessarily passionate about endangered species. Um, it was just a an idea that I saw and used. Not a lot of students were really super engaged in saving, the rhinoceros or the seal or whatever, whereas others were. So I think finding ways to connect lessons to concepts and problems that they're passionate about would be better to engage them. So finding more ways to differentiate, finding a balance between um, letting students just kind of figure things out on their own and having some sort of framework. These are all things that I did discover from this. So, in my endeavor to figure out how to re-engage students after COVID, we're learning a few things. I think um, finding tapping into their passion, tapping into what they're interested in, I think is really going to be the key moving forward and making it applicable to real life. I did find that having students make these because it related to a real world problem did um, capture their attention, um, but really learning how to help them maintain their attention. I think the 2 years of COVID protocols and the weird virtual learning really made it hard for them to re-engage with long-term projects that they have to continuously work on and finalize. But that's my findings. Um, so thanks again to the Fire Summit for the opportunity to share my research and for the innovative grant. I really enjoyed learning the 3D modeling and printing myself. And I know my students are getting more and more excited, especially since they know they can find and make new files and continue printing. So thank you for listening to my presentation.